Alright guys, and welcome back to the R8. Now, I know we haven't seen this car for quite a few weeks, and there's good reason for that, because I was very fortunate a couple of weeks ago to be able to buy my perfect spec 991 GT3. And ever since, I've been so impressed and blown away by it that I gotta be honest, the R8 hasn't been compelling enough to get in it in the last few weeks. I'm not saying I'm like done with this car, I'm just saying in the last few weeks, obviously I've been getting to grips with the Porsche and, you know, learning its characteristics and just enjoying that car for what it is, because it's amazing. Well, since then, I thought, you know, what better car to compare it with in my situation than the R8 V10 Plus. And I say my situation because, as you may or may not know, depending on if you've watched my previous clips, I do use my R8 as my daily driver. And honestly, since getting that Porsche, there hasn't been a day gone by where I haven't driven that car. And I thought, you know, everyone so far has been really comparing the GT3 to the Speciale, and I understand that because there was some time before the GT3 RS was launched, and really the closest competitor to the Speciale, I guess, other than a McLaren 650S, is the Porsche GT3. Again, with that in mind, we've seen videos comparing those cars, and I thought, why not compare the two cars as a proposition, as a daily driver? Because honestly, living with that Porsche, okay, I've only had it 2 weeks, but it's brilliant. So, we're just going to highlight a few key characteristics and traits of each car and just sort of compare them and see how they sort of stack up, really. So, I thought we'd start in the R8 because we haven't seen this car for a few weeks, and I feel like it's getting neglected, you know. I think it needs some love. So here we are, back in this awesome car, starting with power. So, compared with the GT3, the R8 at first looks like a bit of a monster, really. It's a V10 engine and it's pushing out 550 horsepower, which is no small change compared with the Porsche, which is pushing out a claimed 475. And we all know, you know, Porsche typically quote quite conservative figures when it comes to their brake horsepower quote. For argument's sake, let's just say the Porsche is pushing out 475 brake. So comparing them like for like, it's quite a big jump. However, with this having such a big V10 engine, and obviously the R8 has a quattro all-wheel drive system, there is the extra weight in the R8 that the GT3 doesn't have. So we're just going to compare them back to back and just see how it feels. So yeah, let's check it out. Now, sound. Now, I always thought the R8 sounded good, you know. Ultimately, there is a big grizzly V10 in this thing, so it is hard to escape the fact that it sounds great. But I tell you, you get in that Porsche and you realise that the R8 doesn't actually sound that great. This is just a new thing, a new yeah, it's a different level of excitement. Still goes like hell though. Christ. I would imagine if you stuck a whacking great big pipe on this thing, it would be amazing. You know, it'd sound a lot closer, obviously, to a Lamborghini Gallardo, or I guess with this gearbox, a Lamborghini Huracan. But in its stock form, while it does have a lovely barbel, it still had the Audi polish applied to it, which means it is a little bit more refined, a bit more, you know, subdued, and it's the sort of thing that makes it easier to live with on a longer journey. You know, if you're on the motorway, you don't get that drone. Whereas, okay, when you get up this thing and it's approaching 8,000, it does sound fantastic. But compared with the Porsche, I don't know what Porsche have done with that thing, but it sounds, there is undertones of race car in that car, you know. no GT3. Now, dynamics, handling. Again, the R8 Quattro all-wheel drive, massive 335 section tyres, and it's got grip and grip and grip for days. It does understeer a little bit, particularly when tyres aren't up to temperature or we're on damper British roads like we are in now. I mean, temperature outside is 6 degrees. It's not rainy, it's kind of spitting, but the road temperature generally is cool and the surface is damp. Honestly, the Porsche doesn't even understeer in conditions like this. Okay, if you're going into a corner too quickly, it will, and all things will, but I find the front end turn-in on the R8 doesn't quite have that same precise bite. When it gets up to temperature, it's fantastic, but then again, when the Porsche gets up to temperature too, it's a slightly different league. What have we got? 550 horsepower, Quattro all-wheel drive, 7-speed dual-clutch gearbox. Now, what's interesting is the gearboxes in these two cars, even though they are fundamentally a very similar setup, they're both twin-clutch, they're both 7-speed. Again, the R8 is giving you a bit more daily driver polish, you know, and I would say it's the German efficiency, yeah, but it isn't, because the Porsche obviously is German, but in that GT3 the gearbox gives you like a sort of this like rifle bolt click when it goes in. It just kind of drives it home. It's equally as fast as this on the upshifts. The downshifts definitely feel more explosive, and I think the actual paddle feel too, somehow, even though it's still quite a short throw on the GT3, the paddle feel on that car just has a bit more sort of feedback on it. It sort of clicks with a bit more satisfaction behind it, you know? So, yeah, these paddles, even though they are nice and they sort of feel nice on the touch, there isn't much sort of throw in them. So it feels more like you're pressing a button rather than a paddle, if that makes sense. So what's it like to live with outside of performance and all of this gear shift feel and things like that? Well, there's one thing for sure: getting in and out of the R8 is a lot easier than getting in and out of the GT3. Now, despite this car still having, you know, fairly substantial sports seats, the GT3 seats take that to the next level. They are a fixed back carbon bucket seat, and you know, the sides are really dished. They hug you from hip to shoulder. There is no adjustment in the seat back, so you can't actually roll it back even 1 degree. Despite that, I don't know, again, how Porsche have managed to come up with the sort of perfect driving angle, but despite the fact that seat is perfectly fixed, other than forwards and backwards, I never get in that thing thinking, do you know, I could just do with changing this a degree backwards or forwards. It just feels right. So yeah, getting in and out of the R8 a lot easier, but when you're in the GT3, which I guess is the part that counts, honestly, that seat works wonders. Okay, now as daily drivers, you are living with things like cup holders, sound system, sat nav, things like that. Well, let me just start with the sat nav. I've always thought the R8, the interaction on that screen on the R8, while it's quite simple, it does feel like MS-DOS. It's just a little bit backwards now. You can tell that they haven't really upgraded this system since the first R8, which is 2007. 2007! That's going back. So you're interacting with this thing, and it just feels old and outdated, like some Matrix screen. It's all a bit odd, and really there is no comparison between the multimedia system in the R8 versus this latest generation Porsche interface. That is just crisp and lovely and seamless. And cup holders. Now, I'm a big fan of Porsche cup holders. I know it's a small thing, but what's great about them is when these holders pop out, they line up exactly with the air vents. So if you've got a cool drink, you could put the aircon on, focus it on that vent, and it just helps keep your drink cool. It's great.
Ride quality. Now, the ride quality in the R8, I used to think this car was really stiff, and even by most supercar standards, it is fairly stiff because the V10 Plus doesn't come with the option of adaptive suspension. It just comes with the fixed rate springs, which for sort of dynamic driving, fantastic, but it is pretty stiff on the road. Having said that, it's nothing like the GT3. I mean, I've read things and I've heard videos of people saying that it's miles better dampened than the previous 997 GT3, and it probably is, but it's still a bloody stiff car. And on British roads, which are notoriously crap, a lot of the time I am thinking, I wish I just had this sort of button to take the edge off it. It is a very stiff ride, and to hear me saying that is something, because I really don't mind, you know, a sports car being stiff, but there are times in that GT3 when I'm sort of, you know, bouncing around thinking, I just want to take the edge off it. So yeah, the damping on that car isn't quite up to it. So I guess the overall question here is then, is there a need for me to keep the R8? Is there a need for me to keep this car? Well, on the one hand, I love this thing. I love it. It's brilliant. I've kind of grown quite attached to it as well because I've done some fantastic road trips with it. It is a car that now has just gone over to 17,000 miles, just now. So I don't mind sticking lots more miles on it. So if I'm going to be doing some motorway crunching or whatever, I suppose it'd be a good car to absorb that. But yeah, is there any point in me having this car? And I guess that's the start of what this whole video is about, really. What do you think? If you had a GT3 in the drive, would you still want an Audi R8? And of course the answer is yes, why not? Best of both worlds. But there's quite substantial cash tied up in this car that, you know, could perhaps go towards something else. Who knows? So yeah, I guess really for the next few days I'm just going to be weighing up this car, weighing up the options, and thinking, should I keep it? Let's see. Once again, guys, thank you so much for watching. The channel is really growing and I'm really enjoying the interaction that I'm having with you guys. You're asking some great questions, and I know you guys have been wanting a Q&A, so that is coming up soon. It's going to be no ordinary one as well, of course. We like to go over and above for you guys. So between now and the next video, if you want to ask any question you want with regards to cars, I know you guys are going to ask what I do and how I do it, because that's the kind of questions I've been getting a lot lately. I might cover that, I might not, let's see. But yeah, fire away. If you can think of any creative or inventive questions that I could feature in the Q&A, please fire away, because yeah, it's all good stuff, guys. So yeah, once again, thanks so much for watching, and yeah, see you soon. Take it easy. Ciao.